The first time a man shared a bed with his wife, Jenny's scent lingered on his nose. Mark's cheeks flushed with shyness. He gently wrapped his arms around Jenny's waist, yet his hands moved upward uncontrollably. 10 minutes earlier, Jenny slept as freely as ever, restless through the night. Her naturally high body temperature, she often rose in the middle of the night for water, then unconsciously snatched Mark's blanket after drinking. But on this very night, Jenny initiated, nestling close to Mark. Mark gazed at his wife beside him. A different thought stirred within his heart. Mark had never imagined a girl's scent could be so sweet, her body temperature so much warmer than his own. Yet his flustered movements accidentally startled Jenny awake. Mark watched her anxiously, terrified she'd call him a pervert. Jenny gently kissed Mark on the cheek, before returning to her own futon. Mark lay awake all night. When he rose at dawn, heavy dark circles ringed his eyes. He silently resolved to buy a double bed. They would live together now. Sleeping apart was such a waste. He longed to hold Jenny close every night. As he pondered, Mark began dreaming of a larger home, with a more spacious bathroom. Overjoyed, Mark brought up moving to Jenny, but she showed no interest in changing residences. She felt the cramped space brought them closer, letting them feel each other more deeply. Her words made Mark flush instantly. Such simple happiness proved profoundly moving. Many in the world harbor grand ambitions, but for Mark, his greatest dream was simply to sleep beside Jenny each night. Even though Jenny was content with their little cottage, Mark still yearned for a larger home, yet he feared bringing it up repeatedly might upset her. He returned home, his mind heavy with worry. But the next moment... The man never expected that the Minotaur race of another world would be so huge that the temporary houses he built couldn't fit them at all. With no other choice, Jack could only let them stay in the inn's lobby first, but this was only the beginning. As war broke out in the Magic Kingdom, more and more races fled to this remote little village. The second group to arrive were the Centaurs. They immediately put on an arrogant attitude. They demanded Jack introduce himself first, and even claimed to be attendants of a Viscount's family, insisting they must receive the best treatment. However, their arrogance was quickly shattered by reality, because any random member of Jack's harem in the village was someone they absolutely couldn't afford to offend. Even the girl in charge of receiving guests was the second daughter of an earl. Attendants of a viscount? That meant nothing here. Only then did the centaurs realize that they had just been rude to village chief Jack, and cold sweat ran down their backs in fear. Jack, however, didn't take it to heart at all, and continued helping them arrange lodging. But another problem appeared. The houses still didn't fit their body size, so Jack had no choice but to place the centaurs temporarily in the nearby dungeon. Just as Jack was troubled by the fact that no one can live in these houses, the third group of refugees arrived. They looked like young women on the surface, but were actually rare dryads. They could transform into plants to hide from monsters, but their homeland had been cut down by humans and struck by floods, forcing them to seek a new habitat. On the way, they heard merchants mention Jack's village, so they crossed the forest of death to get here. Learning they had traveled so far, Jack wanted to prepare food for them, but the dryads refused, because after seeing the high-quality fruits brought by the merchants, they knew the soil here was the nourishment they truly needed. So the dryads went straight into Jack's fields, and began photosynthesis to replenish their energy. Jack was stunned, but still asked where they wanted to live. The newly built houses fit their size perfectly, but the dryads said they only wanted to stay outdoors and bask in the sun. This gave Jack another headache. His newly built houses still had no occupants. At night, the dryads were even more unbelievable. They could glow on their own to provide light. This girl worked overtime for 67 days in a row. She just wanted to stand up and take a break. Yet the next second, she suddenly collapsed and died on the spot. Jenny never imagined that at the age of 20, she would die so casually. Fortunately, a goddess from another world saw her pitiful state. Not only did she give Jenny a chance to be reborn, she also offered to grant her one wish, because her previous life of working was too exhausting. Now Jenny only wanted to live a carefree life, so the goddess bestowed upon her an immortal body, and set her reincarnation location on a plateau. Not only that, the goddess also kindly gave Jenny a house. Seeing her beautiful 18-year-old face in the mirror, Jenny danced with excitement. She could finally live the lazy life she dreamed of. Then Jenny noticed a village at the foot of the mountain, so she decided to go take a look. Just as she was about to reach the village, a slime suddenly appeared, and rammed hard into Jenny's stomach. But strangely, she didn't feel any pain. Jenny immediately became interested. She quickly drew her weapon to fight the slime. After a round of attacks, Jenny successfully defeated the slime, and obtained a blue crystal. Later, guided by the villagers, Jenny arrived at the Adventurers Guild. Through the receptionist Lily's introduction, she learned that this was a beginner's village, and only low-level monsters like slimes were around. As for the blue crystals dropped by slimes. They were magic stones that could be exchanged for money, but to exchange them, one must first join the Adventurers Guild. Seeing the registration tablet before her, Jenny didn't hesitate and placed her hand on it. After all, she needed money to sustain her life. At that moment, Jenny's information appeared on the tablet. Although her level was only 1, she had a special ability, immortality. This instantly made Lily envious. After that, Jenny lived her dream life, sleeping until she naturally woke up every day, spending her free time sunbathing on the roof. In addition, Jenny killed 25 slimes every day, not only as her steady income, but also to train her body. Her leisurely days passed, and 300 years went by. During this time, Jenny often went into the forest to gather herbs, and used them to help villagers cure illnesses. With her excellent medical skills, she even stopped a plague from spreading once. Now most of the villagers in the beginner's village had grown up under Jenny's protection. Therefore, everyone respected her deeply, and even regarded her as the village's guardian deity. One day, Jenny as usual, went to the Adventurers Guild to exchange magic stones, but this time, the receptionist Lisa was curious about the level and strength of the witch before her. Jenny herself was also curious. After all, for 300 years she had only fought level 1 slimes. Seeing Lisa take out a magic tool to test her level, Jenny placed her hand on it. The next second, seeing 10.84 million experience points on the panel, Jenny immediately said the magic tool must be broken. But then the careful Lisa discovered the reason on the panel. It turned out Jenny had a special ability. She could gain double experience points. A slime's experience was usually just 2 points, but with this ability, it became 4 points. Jenny killed 25 slimes every day. After 300 years, that added up to 10.84 million experience points. Lisa immediately looked at Jenny with admiration, but Jenny couldn't feel happy, because if this news spread, she would no longer be able to live her leisurely life. So Jenny asked Lisa to keep it a secret. Seeing Lisa agree, Jenny finally left at ease. She thought she could continue her peaceful life, but unexpectedly, the next day, Jenny's door was knocked on. Several adventurers directly challenged her. Jenny pretended to be just an ordinary person, but the opponents still refused to back down. Helplessly, Jenny had no choice but to accept the challenge. Their mage struck first, unleashing her strongest wind magic. In just an instant, a massive tornado swept forth. Jenny also used wind magic, but she tried hard to keep her power released to the smallest degree. The co-workers noticed that the blind girl was acting strange today. She had been smiling foolishly all day. It turned out that just yesterday she kissed the invisible man, and since she had never been in a relationship before, she could not hide her feelings at all. What troubled Anna was that it seemed she was the only one taking it so seriously. In contrast, Jack acted very natural. There was no change even in his tone, but Jack seemed to understand what Anna was thinking. He once again placed Anna's hand on his chest. In fact, when he went camping with Anna yesterday, he was also very nervous, but he was afraid that Anna would dislike how nervous he looked.
今言い方変えませんでした?
After that, Jack sent Anna home like usual. On the way to work the next day, it suddenly started to rain heavily, so Jack got completely soaked. When he arrived at the office and prepared to change clothes, he saw that Anna was also soaked all over, so he pretended nothing was wrong and showed concern for Anna. He immediately brought Anna a blanket, and found a space heater to warm her up. When Anna touched Jack's cold and wet hand, she realized that Jack was also completely soaked, and Jack had actually hidden it from her. So Anna asked that they warm up together, but this made Anna's heart start racing again. She felt that being shy like this made her seem too forward. However, right after that, she felt Jack place his hand on the back of her hand. At that moment, Anna felt she should respond to Jack. The atmosphere between them grew ambiguous. Jack held Anna's face with his hand, and Anna also realized that Jack wanted to kiss her again. On a day off, Anna's mother wanted to meet Jack again, because the last meeting had been a bit awkward, so she wanted to properly get to know Jack. But when they met, Anna felt it was like Jack had come to propose, which made her feel embarrassed. She also wondered whether Jack had thought about the future. By the time Anna came back to her senses, her mother and Jack were chatting happily. Anna had originally worried that her mother might say something inappropriate, but according to Jack, while Anna was in the restroom, her mother only asked questions out of concern for Anna, and she even asked Jack to take good care of her. After that, Jack had been exhausted over a friend's issues, because George's wife suddenly wanted to return to her hometown. This made George think it was a sign they were about to divorce, and because he was so bored these days, George had been staying at Jack's place. Fortunately, in the end, with Jack's persuasion, George took the initiative to contact his wife and went home. This finally let Jack relax. However, Anna asked Jack if he was not good at getting along with friends. Jack replied that it was not the case. It was just that George's personality was completely opposite to his, and that he actually quite liked George's straightforward nature. Anna felt this was a good opportunity, so she asked Jack to try being straightforward once. Then Jack leaned his head on Anna's shoulder, and Anna gently stroked Jack's face, but slowly she reached out with both hands. Every place her fingers touched was deeply imprinted in Anna's mind, and she rarely had chances like this to touch someone else's face.
僕は静香さんの顔を触りますね。
Pickle never saw this coming. He just gave Baki a light tap, and Baki instantly snapped, taking on the charging stance of a Triceratops. Before Pickle could even react, Baki came at him like a massive dragon, lunging straight toward Pickle. First he pulled off a death roll like a T-Rex bite, then slammed Pickle down with the force of a Triceratops charge. Pickle, the strongest caveman, had never felt such a terrifying impact, but Baki gave him no chance to catch his breath, transforming into a dragon again and charging at Pickle. Pickle had no choice but to play defense. He kicked off hard and leaped onto the arena wall. The next second Pickle shot toward Baki like a cannonball. Seeing this, Baki actually relaxed his body, planning to take the hit head on, but 2.5 seconds later it was Pickle who got knocked back. More accurately, Pickle bounced right off. Just like when a bullet passes through a body, a bullet entering the abdomen might exit through the shoulder. Objects moving at high speed change direction when they hit something soft. Then Baki started marking his territory around the arena. He wanted to show Pickle that this was his turf. Seeing this, Pickle completely lost it. He leaped down from above and slammed into the ground. That was where he usually slept. Once he saw his provocation worked, Baki decided to drop the mind games. Then he walked right up to Pickle. He had been waiting to face Pickle head on. At that, Pickle raised his arm and smashed it down at Baki. That stomp was incredibly powerful, as expected from the Hanma bloodline. A normal person would have been crushed to paste. Seeing this, Pickle launched an even fiercer attack on Baki, powerful enough to send the 200-pound Baki flying straight into the ceiling. This incredible strength reminded Baki of Oliva. If Oliva fought Pickle, who would be the true king of strength when it comes to raw power? Hanayama is no joke either, and his father Yujiro's demon back is absolutely unmatched. Both fighters had nearly identical opening stances. Who knows what would happen if they clashed head-on? At that moment, Baki cleared his mind completely. Now he focused only on how to beat Pickle. His mind became crystal clear. Even though Pickle's strikes were lightning fast, Baki dodged them with ease. Pickle threw punch after punch at Baki, but could not even graze him. Baki moved like an elegant matador, running circles around Pickle. Pickle charged at Baki in a rage, but felt like he passed right through him. This was the karate technique called circling behind. At this point, Baki's speed had reached its peak, so Pickle's attacks could not touch him at all. Baki appearing suddenly startled Pickle. He swung his claws wildly but kept missing. Suddenly Pickle stopped attacking, because Baki's fist was aimed right at his weak spot. Then Baki slammed a punch straight into Pickle's groin. This was the third brutal hit since Pickle came back. Intense pain shot through his entire body. He clutched himself and rolled around on the ground. Just when everyone thought the match was over, Pickle got back up while holding his injury. This time Baki had truly set him off. Then his body began to change dramatically. He transformed into a raging beast. This is the most tragic ending in War House Salesman. Ishida, over 70 years old, should have enjoyed his twilight years in peace, but in the end, he was left all alone. Originally, Ishida was a kind-hearted old man. Even when faced with difficulties from young juniors, Ishida would only smile bitterly and endure in silence. As the heavy rain fell, the devil Meguro Fukuzo appeared beside Ishida. Now Ishida lived in his son's house. Clearly, he liked rooms with sunlight, but he insisted on moving himself into the north-facing room. The feeling of living under someone else's roof was really uncomfortable. Fortunately, a well-behaved 3-year-old grandson could comfort Ishida's heart, but his daughter-in-law always wore a stern face and took his grandson away. He was already close to his deathbed, yet he had not made any plans for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Meguro Fukuzo knew that what Ishida lacked most now was self-confidence. He should speak more firmly when in his son's house. No matter how arrogant his daughter-in-law was, she was just a junior. As for when playing ball, Ishida, as an elder, didn't need to pay attention to others' criticisms at all. With these two secret weapons, Ishida finally felt the joy of life, and Meguro Fukuzo also gave him a piece of advice. To gain others' respect, Ishida, as an elder, should respect those older than himself even more. However, his daughter-in-law's patience with Ishida had reached its limit. Faced with breakfast consisting of 3 dishes and 1 soup, Ishida showed no tolerance as an elder. Instead, he demanded that his daughter-in-law make him a separate meal every day. Taking advantage of being an old man, he made unlimited demands on his daughter-in-law. Faced with his well-behaved grandson, even doted on him excessively without limits. Before going out, he even asked his daughter-in-law to move all his belongings to the second floor. But when Ishida was playing ball, the young junior, trying to save face, criticized Ishida constantly. But Ishida, who had already realized the true meaning of life, would not give in to him. However, unexpectedly, the part in the young man's hair was actually a wig. Even his good teeth were fake. It seemed that this man was at least older than Ishida, and the price of bullying an old man was equivalent to violating Meguro Fukuzo's agreement. He would lose the most precious thing he had. When he returned home, the room was already empty. Only a phonograph was left on the floor. Among the demon race, Jack was a complete anomaly. While his kind all fed on humans, he alone never stained his hands with blood. The first time he ever tasted meat, his prey was a giant many times his size, and that was only the beginning, for he possessed an absurd ability to erase the very recognition of anything that existed outside of himself. Magic, psychic powers, divine arts, none could function in his presence. Even the true demon king, feared across the world, would appear as nothing more than an ordinary man in Jack's eyes. Yet who could have imagined that this godlike being was once a blank, innocent soul, untouched by the world? He did not understand what killing meant, nor did he know that, by nature's law, humans were supposed to be his prey. Until one day, he met a kind old priest. The old man took Jack in and convinced the terrified villagers to accept this man-eating demon who refused to eat. Though fearful at first, the villagers trusted the priest's virtue and reluctantly agreed to coexist. The priest gave him a name, Jack. He taught him words, writing, and meaning. To his surprise, Jack learned astonishingly fast. Day by day, the priest began to treat Jack like his own child, until that day, when a giant stormed into the village. Once a hero sent to slay the Demon King, he had been driven mad by the Demon King's psychic corruption. Now he rampaged through the streets, devouring villagers to silence the voices in his head. The priest stepped forward, pleading for him to stop, but the deranged hero had long lost his sanity. As disaster loomed, Jack appeared between them. Everyone thought a devastating clash of magic was about to erupt, but instead, the moment Jack stood there, every spell simply vanished. The giant froze in terror. All his incantations, all his powers gone. Then Jack looked at him, and the giant's muscles, bones, and flesh began to melt away. Because in Jack's perception, a giant shouldn't possess such a body structure. Helpless, the giant collapsed. Jack raised his club, and with a single swing, crushed his skull. That night, Jack tasted flesh for the first time. Only then did the priest and villagers realize Jack hadn't abstained from eating humans out of kindness. He simply hadn't known that humans could be eaten. Fear spread like wildfire. They could no longer bear the thought of such a creature living among them. Not long after, the villagers surrounded the church with weapons in hand. The priest desperately begged Jack to flee, to find another church for help, but Jack knew the truth. These people were beyond saving. He couldn't watch his benefactor die for them. As chaos neared its breaking point, the priest made a desperate choice to leave the village and seek aid. But on the road, he fell into a trap the villagers had laid. A massive boulder pinned him to the ground. At the brink of death, the villagers suddenly dropped dead. Every one of them, the one who had struck them down, was John, another orphan the priest had once raised. With his final breath, the old priest wrote a letter to Jack. I was wrong. I took away your right to live by your instincts as a demon, and tried to bind you with human values. From now on, forget everything I've taught you. Follow your own will. Never again live under the rules of mankind. Then, from the distance, his senior, John, approached with a calm smile, handing him a sealed envelope. Jack, he said, I can offer you a new path in life. The Demon King never imagined that, despite possessing the ability to reflect any damage, he would be completely helpless against an ordinary human today. It was all because Jack had wrapped himself in healing magic. Whenever he inflicted damage on the Black Knight, the healing magic would instantly restore the injury, making the damage impossible to reflect. However, the Black Knight could still feel the pain caused by Jack's attacks. As it turned out, the Black Knight had killed 2 human heroes, and the entire battlefield's tide shifted in an instant. But at that moment, a healer unexpectedly launched an attack. With a single punch, Jack sent the Black Knight flying. Wasting no time, Jack rushed to save the 2 fallen heroes. Jenny, who had suffered lighter injuries, regained consciousness after a brief healing session. She wanted to warn Jack that the Black Knight could reflect all damage, but Jack's earlier punch had clearly shocked the Black Knight. For the first time, the Black Knight experienced pain, leaving him both bewildered and furious. Unable to comprehend why his ability didn't work on Jack, the enraged Black Knight grabbed his weapon and charged forward. As a healer, Jack naturally didn't want to fight, so he picked up the 2 heroes and made a run for it. A demon soldier tried to stop them, but Jack leaped out of harm's way with ease. Jenny seized the opportunity to unleash an electric spell, allowing all 3 of them to escape successfully. Although the demon soldiers wanted to pursue, the human soldiers blocked their path. Along the way, Jack relentlessly cast healing magic, since John had a sword wound piercing his abdomen, requiring a longer healing process. Just then, the Black Knight hurled his greatsword, cutting off Jack's escape route. It was clear the Black Knight had no intention of letting them leave. Jack sighed in frustration. All he wanted was to be a healer. But with the Black Knight in his way, resigning himself, Jack decided to stop running. He told Jenny and John to rest for a while, and resolved to face the Black Knight himself. Crafting Master dominates the real game. The protagonist wasn't interested in spending extra money on in-game purchases. When others struggled against wild monsters and resorted to buying new gear, he chose to craft his own equipment. Bladed boots and a unique composite hunting bow. To others, these items seemed bizarre and impractical, but to him, they were perfectly suited for survival. When the game introduced the 5th zone, he decided to explore its challenges. Initially, he targeted bees for their materials, but an errant arrow struck a rock ant instead. It was like hitting solid steel. No damage was dealt, and the creature was enraged. Even worse, the rock ant had a chain call skill, summoning its companions whenever it was attacked. Left with no choice, the protagonist engaged in melee combat. However, his confident flying kick backfired due to reflected damage, leaving him paralyzed and unable to move. For the first time, he experienced death in the game. Upon respawning, he gained a new skill, forging. Determined to improve his gear and avoid repeating his mistakes, he got to work crafting. Upgrades to his equipment included specialized arrows, piercing arrows for penetrating tough armor, hammerhead arrows made entirely of iron for blunt force impact, enhanced boots. To optimize his kicking skills, he designed boots with steel spikes and kukri-inspired blades on the soles. These added 12 attack points and 2 defense points. Upgraded bow. With his archery skill reaching level 30, he aimed to craft a bow that could fully unleash his potential. After weighing the pros and cons of short, long, and hunting bows, he chose to make a composite hunting bow, a design impossible to replicate in real life. The bow offered double the power, at the cost of requiring greater strength to draw. In return, its range and damage output were significantly enhanced. The protagonist returned to face the rock ants, this time taking a more strategic approach. He carefully observed his target, ensuring it was isolated before engaging. With his new gear, he successfully defeated the rock ants, harvesting their hardened exoskeletons, which were ideal materials for crafting armor. The guild soon noticed his growing prowess and ingenuity. It was clear that the crafting master was becoming a valuable asset to the team. The woman gently pulled a golden thread from the baby's head, but the next moment, the baby's eyes suddenly widened. In an instant, it stopped breathing. She quickly explained the situation to her husband, but her husband thought she had gone mad. He never let the woman touch the child again. He also abandoned her to live in an empty house, alone, completely unaware that the baby had already become a vegetable. From then on, the woman's eyesight grew sharper and sharper. Not only could she see the grain of a tree 100 meters away, she could also observe strange and bizarre insects. She could even pull glowing golden threads from the bodies of plants. She didn't know what these were, but their soft touch gave her an urge to weave them into cloth. Yet even though the threads were right there on the loom, her mother could not not see them at all. Her mother also believed her daughter had developed mental problems. The next day, the mushy-shirt Ginko happened to pass by. Only then did he finally see this beautiful garment. It turned out that the threads were a kind of material called Yoshitsu, demon matter, invisible to ordinary people. Even Ginko himself did not have the ability to weave it. Although pulling golden threads from an adult would do no harm, in the case of a baby, it could injure the body, and even lead to death. Only then did the woman realize what a terrible mistake she had made. She told Ginko everything that had happened before. Originally, there was no way to reverse it, but if the child wore this garment, it might miraculously come back to life. After descending the mountain, Ginko sought out the woman's husband. He dressed the child in the invisible garment. He told the man that he must not remove it until the child had grown up, but the man could not see the so-called garment at all. Just as he was about to scold Ginko for being a charlatan, suddenly the baby woke up. The father finally breathed a sigh of relief. He faithfully remembered Ginko's advice, and never once tried to take off his son's clothes. 2 years passed. The frail, weak infant had now grown into a 10-year-old child. When he fought, none of the village children were his match. If the villagers hadn't stopped him in time, children several years older would have nearly been beaten to death. The boy's natural superhuman strength not only made the villagers call him a monster, but his father often scolded him for it as well. The boy desperately wanted to tell his father the reason he fought, because the other children constantly mocked him for having no mother. So he often hid under his covers and cried, believing that his mother had fallen ill because of giving birth to him, and that was why she refused to see him. As time went on, the boy, like his mother, began to see the strange bugs. He told his father that a fairy had been circling in the sky all along. His father thought the boy was also becoming like his mother, and scolded him to forget everything he saw. The boy secretly hid in his room and wept, but at that moment he saw the glowing garment. Because there were no seams at all, the boy always thought it was a fairy, who had accidentally left it there. Every time he saw the white spirit circling above the mountaintop, he thought it was looking for this garment. Then one day Ginko came to the village again. Who would have thought that the fragile infant had now grown into a sturdy young lad? But the boy had long forgotten him. Only when Ginko said he had come to take back the glowing garment did the boy react. Probably because the boy had absorbed too much Yoshitsu, Ginko decided to help remove it. Upon hearing that he would no longer see the strange bugs, the boy agreed to give it a try. But no matter how much of the special medicine Ginko applied, it had no effect at all. So the boy thought Ginko was a fraud. While discussing with the father, Ginko brought up the past events. Ginko wanted to ask the boy's mother to pull out the excess golden threads. That was the only way to save the boy. Yet even so, the father still refused to let the boy see his mother. This made the boy finally lose his composure. The girl had severe nearsightedness, and because she went out without her glasses, she mistook a trash bag on the roadside for a kitten. This surprised the boy, but seeing how cute she looked, Jack couldn't help but pull out his phone. But he quickly stopped himself. People around them had already noticed, so Jack decided to remind Anna.
こっちにも猫ちゃん。なでなで。あれ？カメラか。
When Jack arrived at school, he saw something he couldn't accept. Beside Anna, there was a handsome guy. Even Jack knew how popular that guy was. George was helping Anna look for something, but took the chance to grab her hand. This made Jack extremely jealous, but he forced himself to stay calm. Just as he finally composed himself, Anna's words shocked both of them.
いつもありがとね。カメラくん。
George quickly explained, which made Anna panic. She hurried to explain herself, but when she turned around, she saw Jack. The next day, Anna forgot her glasses again. A classmate grew concerned, and warned her that if she kept frowning like that, she would end up with wrinkles between her brows. Hearing this, Anna panicked. She rushed to the mirror to examine herself. At that moment, Jack had just arrived in the classroom, and greeted Anna. He saw her staring at him with wide open eyes, which made his heart race. But Anna couldn't keep her eyes open for long, because she still couldn't see clearly at all. While Anna was still worrying about wrinkles, Jack had already been thinking about her all day. Even after returning home, his mind was filled with her. That day, Jack and Anna were on cleaning duty together. Even though Anna couldn't clean well without her glasses, she still insisted on finishing her tasks properly. Just as Jack was enjoying the moment, a cockroach suddenly appeared and startled him. He was even more afraid that Anna would see it and get scared. So he called out to her, and told her to slowly move away from where the cockroach was. But Anna misjudged the distance, and almost kissed Jack. Jack froze on the spot. Another day at school, Anna was clearly wearing her glasses, but she said she had forgotten them. Jack reminded her, but she accidentally knocked her glasses off. Jack picked them up, and when he looked up, he saw Anna closing her eyes. Jack's first thought was that she wanted to marry him, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Even just putting the glasses back on Anna was already a huge challenge for him. This alien is a high school student. Every morning, when he goes to school, the cutest girl in the class always waits for him. Momi insists that she's not specifically waiting for him, and then Yohei urges Momi to hurry up. Momi gets shy like this, but Yohei is already used to it. When Momi hears that Yohei needs to go to school to feed the chickens today, she shyly says she wants to go with him. She thinks she has nothing better to do anyway. This is Momi's first time seeing chickens. She didn't expect them to be so big. She doesn't even know if chicken meat tastes good. She's heard that humans used to love eating chicken, but now there are no humans or chickens left on Earth. When Ami sees the alien has left, she immediately heads to the food. She's so happy to find rice balls today. It turns out that the war between humans and aliens had already started long ago. Aliens can enhance their power by shapeshifting, so in the end, humans lost. In the eyes of aliens, humans are a delicious food source. After endless hunting, humans are almost extinct. Yuto and Ami are among the few survivors. They wear chicken costume outfits to hide their identities. Aliens can only tell humans from animals by their faces. This generation of aliens doesn't even like to eat chickens, so Yuto and Ami are able to survive. They met at this school, but it had already turned into an alien school. Aliens who liked human culture came to settle on Earth, and they had heard that all humans seemed to have been wiped out. Ami asks Yuto when the aliens will return to their home planet, and Yuto thinks they might go back soon. Once the aliens are full, they will leave. Yuto tells Ami to just hold on a little longer. At that moment, a rumor spreads through the school, saying that some aliens are hiding humans, but the exact location is still unclear. Now, Ami is still fantasizing about how life will return to normal once the aliens leave. What they didn't realize was that Yohei, who had come to feed them, had already overheard their conversation.
コケコッコ
Yohei walks over with some food, and questions them, asking if they are humans. Yuto breaks free from Yohei's hold, and Yohei tells them he's checked the data. Chickens have feathers and are smaller in size, although other aliens haven't discovered them yet. He has no intention of eating them. Yohei says he wants to help them, and warns them that this courtyard is no longer safe. A transfer student has arrived today, and their planet loves to eat chickens. One alien has already told him that. There are 2 chickens in the school's backyard. The transfer student really likes eating chicken. Shapeshifting is not allowed at the alien school, but the transfer student has completely lost his mind. He rushes to the backyard at the fastest speed. At this point, Ami has changed into a kitten costume. Yohei tells the alien that these are all cats. Aliens only recognize faces. Yohei thinks this should be fine, but the transfer student says that he also eats cats. Everyone is shocked. This alien only eats small animals. He opens his mouth wide, and in the next moment, he's about to swallow Ami whole, but Yohei punches him in the head. Yohei tells Ami to stay calm. He has already saved her. The man never expected it. As a max-level support specialist, he had mastered cooking, alchemy, and potion making. In just a few years, he had built his team into the world's strongest, but because he was popular with women, the team captain grew intensely jealous. During a crucial battle, the captain deliberately injured the dragon's eye, sending it into a frenzied rage that nearly caused a total party wipe. Afterward, the captain gathered select team members and pinned the failed mission entirely on Jack. Seeing that no one dared to speak up in his defense, Jack couldn't be bothered to argue with the captain. The next day, he decided to leave the royal capital and open a small restaurant in the city. He had researched this possibility long ago. For instance, he could skip buying a refrigerator, since he could use ice magic instead. He would buy a cheap property and renovate it himself. After purchasing all necessary supplies, he only needed to hire one server. Then he noticed commotion nearby. Approaching, he found a slave merchant promoting his merchandise. Jack hadn't intended to get involved, but the girl's hopeless expression reminded him of his own struggling younger self. As potential buyers fiercely bid against each other, Jack suddenly offered 1 million gold. He assumed this astronomical sum would scare off all competitors. Unexpectedly, the grocery store owner from earlier bid 1.5 million.
可愛い娘持って帰ってたくさん可愛いやろよなんだこの変態を絵に描いたような野郎は
Though Jack still needed substantial funds for renovations, he couldn't bear letting the girl fall into that pervert's hands. Reluctantly, he raised his bid further.
200だ200だぜ300だぜ350
Ultimately purchasing the girl at a sky-high price, he bought her new clothes, but even then, Ato's inner shadows remained. She had no idea what she should do now. When Ato's stomach rumbled, Jack immediately understood. He headed to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Using fire magic to rapidly heat the oiled wok, he added beaten eggs followed by rice. To Jack, this was just routine cooking, but to Ato, it was a magical spectacle. Before she realized it, a gleaming plate of fried rice sat before her. With just one tentative bite, Ato was completely conquered by the flavor, a happiness she had never experienced before. As she took spoonful after spoonful, tears began streaming down her face. Jack didn't know what she had endured, but unless Ato chose to share, he wouldn't cry.
うまいかアトリエめっちゃ喉詰まらせてるおい大丈夫かおいすんげえ音出てるいや本当に大丈夫か
After this experience, Ato gradually became more outgoing. She not only volunteered to test new dishes, but also helped Jack arrange the dining space. Their relationship grew increasingly close, almost like father and daughter. Once everything was ready, Jack's restaurant finally opened for business. Both of them stood prepared to welcome their first customer.
いらっしゃい
いらっしゃいませ。
The girl never imagined that one accident would leave the two of them trapped in the same room. When Jack realized there was no exit, they had no choice but to wait. But Jenny quickly guessed this was probably a trap her mom set to push the two of them together. The next moment, a fancy meal was delivered to the room, and Jack instantly forgot about escaping. Jenny, however, said this was just her family's usual food, and walked away. But not long after, Jack heard Jenny scream. When he found her, she was hanging from the wardrobe, unable to get down. Turns out the little stool she stepped on had flipped over. Just as Jack stepped forward to help, Jenny suddenly jumped, landing right on Jack's face. The awkwardness froze the air for a moment, but seconds later, Jenny collapsed collapsed to the floor with a leg cramp. While Jack massaged her leg, the angle accidentally exposed her, and Jenny turned crimson the instant she noticed. Soon after, Jenny went to take a bath, but Jack, sitting in the living room, heard her calling for help again. When he rushed into the bathroom, he found Jenny collapsed from lack of oxygen. After soaking for too long, Jack was completely speechless. A little later, Jack finally asked her why she kept getting into accidents in her own home. Jenny said it was her first time living with a boy, so she wasn't used to it at all. Her answer plunged the room into a long, quiet silence. Meanwhile, her mother was watching them through the cameras. Seeing them sitting silently, she immediately turned on the TV in the room. The sudden noise startled them, and Jenny instinctively grabbed Jack's arm, only for both of them to quickly jump back to a safe distance. Just then, the TV announced something surprising. Jenny was shocked, and her excited reaction made Jack even more worried. But the next second, Jenny looked straight at Jack.
何を想像してるんだか。
今エッチになってるでしょ。
なってませんが。
なってるくせに
And her mother burst into laughter watching the scene. She turned up the room's air conditioning temperature, and soon Jack felt so hot that he tried to turn it off, only to find the controls weren't working. That sparked yet another heated argument between them, while Mom was laughing so hard, she nearly fell over. Later that night, they decided to sleep, but Jenny suddenly came up with a rule. The next thing Jack knew, he was tied to the bed. Even his mouth was taped shut. Not long after, Jenny became so thirsty, she started searching for her water bottle. She mistook Jack's hand for the bottle's opening, and bit down hard. Jack couldn't make a sound, and just endured it. Then Jenny started licking his fingers, thinking she was touching the bottle. When she finally removed her eye mask, she realized she had been holding Jack's hand the whole time. Embarrassment hit her instantly. To cover it up, she quickly grabbed the real bottle and pretended to take a drink. The girl was surprised to find that the guy she liked seemed to have finally clued in lately. No matter how affectionate she'd been with Jack in the past, he would only respond with silence, or shyly brush her off in a panic. But now, Jack was starting to fight back. Not only was he responding to her gestures, he even asked her out face to face. After they had a falling out, Jack realized he might actually have feelings for Jenny, so he made a floral ring for her. The flowers inside symbolized eternal love, but afraid of being rejected, he didn't dare confess his true feelings. Instead, he told her it was a symbol of their friendship. Before long, they entered their second year of high school. Jack hadn't expected to genuinely fall for Jenny. Jenny had given up on her plans to move to Tokyo, and the two returned to their close, inseparable dynamic. Then Jack noticed the ring was no longer on her finger. Jenny quickly pointed to her neck. She was still wearing it, now on a chain. Jack leaned in and asked if she wanted him to get her a new necklace. Ever since realizing his feelings, every time Jack looked at Jenny, he felt the urge to confess. Suddenly, he placed his hands on her shoulders, and asked her seriously if she would go out with him. Just as Jenny was about to say yes, he pulled back and said he was just kidding. Jenny pretended to stay calm and ran off, then splashed cold water on her face in the restroom to cool down. Later, while chatting, Jenny shared some bad news with Jack. The website they built together had been discovered. Jack didn't seem to care, but Jenny was a little anxious. If other girls found out those cute accessories were made by Jack, so many would flock to him. And then, just like he'd agreed with Anna, he wouldn't hesitate to say yes to someone else. Jack sighed at that. He made it clear once again, the only person he'd given a ring to was Jenny. Jenny suddenly got too flustered to speak. While the two were playfully messing around, they suddenly felt an intense stare. It was Anna, watching them. When your carefully written work gets criticized, what should you do? This young man decided to punch the critic. An elderly man who happened to be the curator of a calligraphy exhibition hall. As a result, his father exiled him to a remote, sparsely populated island. His name is Sam, a young calligrapher. Recalling the curator's harsh words, Sam gazed at the ocean and muttered, "The sea doesn't even look beautiful. It's so ordinary. Is it because I'm in a bad mood?" The old man beside him laughed heartily and said, "It's not beautiful because it's cloudy today. But hey, watching the sea is a good way to calm yourself when you're feeling down." Sam finally made it to his temporary home, only to find that his luggage had arrived before him, and there was no one to help him move it inside. The local village chief showed up, handed him the keys, and informed him that there was only one bus a day on the island. As for taxis, they were available, but incredibly hard to get. Sam just wanted to live alone. He needed to focus on his calligraphy. The village chief reassured him, saying, "Focus on your writing. Don't worry about meals. We'll take care of that for you." But as Sam looked around, the house didn't feel abandoned at all. In the closet, there were old talismans pasted on the walls. The bathroom and toilet were ancient, and even rats scurried around. Sam thought, there must be something in this house. Suddenly, a child appeared out of nowhere, startling Sam so much that he jumped. The village chief explained that this child was Lily, and that she had been using the house as her secret hideout. Annoyed, Sam immediately asked them both to leave. After tidying up the room, he finally sat down to write. But just as he started, Lily barged in again. Because of the incident with the curator, people around the village had begun to avoid Sam. He wondered if he could ever recover his reputation in the calligraphy world. These distracting thoughts made it impossible for him to focus. Maybe I should have a drink of water, he thought. But this time, even the village chief came back into the house. The duke's daughter born into a prestigious family of magic. She clearly possesses an immense amount of magical power, but has never been able to use magic. And out of jealousy toward the maid's daily progress, her magical power spiraled out of control. While Alan was teaching the two of them, he mentioned that current magic formulas can only activate a single elemental attribute, so he modified the formulas and had them try using magic of an element they weren't familiar with. The maid Ellie quickly succeeded in casting the spell, but Tina was still the same as always failing to cast at the crucial moment. To solve the strange phenomenon surrounding Tina, Alan went to the library to search for information. He knew Tina had magical power, but it was as if something was preventing her from using it. Unexpectedly, Tina and the head maid also came to the library. Seeing Tina study so diligently, the head maid grew curious about this new tutor. Tina said Alan was a kind and patient teacher. After Tina left, the head maid finally called out to Alan. She said Tina was very smart and eager to learn, but all the tutors she had so far had dismissed her entirely just because she couldn't use magic. Each time, Tina would end up crying alone in secret, so she hoped this time Alan wouldn't give up on Tina. Alan immediately agreed. After all, Tina was a student he truly cared about. The next day during class, Tina failed again, just like always, but this time, Alan noticed some shards of ice drifting around her, which meant Tina was just one step away from success. Time passed like this once again. Ellie had already learned to use magic to make a candle bloom, but Tina still couldn't cast any magic. Not only that, at night, when Alan practiced with Tina, he noticed her magic formulas were vanishing quickly lately, as if being rejected by something. Alan spent the whole night pondering the cause. The next day, when Alan arrived at the classroom, he found Tina seemed to have stayed there all night. When Tina saw Alan, her emotions suddenly became unstable. She knew Alan had done so much for her. Tina even wished he would scold her, rather than just offering comfort. These days, hearing Alan praise Ellie, dark emotions had been building up inside her. The old billionaire couldn't accept that he was dying. He had over 100 billion in assets, and a wife who was 50 years younger than him, but he had mysteriously contracted an illness. He hired all the famous doctors in the world, but none of them could even determine the cause of his sickness. One day, his wife spent 3 million to bring in another renowned doctor. The old billionaire didn't trust him, but Black Jack wasn't offended. He simply asked how the old man felt when he got sick. As the old man began to answer, he suddenly fell ill again, letting out a piercing scream, and looking horribly disfigured. His wife quickly grabbed a few bottles of ice water, and the old man drank over 10 liters to ease the pain. What was strange, though, was that there was no moisture under his skin. While Black Jack was confused, the old man suddenly started sweating profusely. The water he had just drunk came pouring out, and even at the end, he was vomiting like a fountain. Even Black Jack had never seen such a bizarre illness, so he began to study the medical records left by previous doctors. He discovered that the old man's physical condition was completely normal, and there were no pathogens in his body, which is why the 80 doctors couldn't find a diagnosis. Moreover, the water that had relieved his pain was just ordinary underground water after being tested. Black Jack went over the medical records again and again, and finally discovered the doctor's oversight. They had all conducted surgeries after the old man's symptoms had ended, but no one had checked for changes in his body while he was sick. However, during a severe attack, the patient was writhing in pain, and performing surgery was not convenient. Meanwhile, his wife was having an affair with the butler. The butler had long been waiting for the old man to die so he could take everything, but this time, the wife claimed her relationship with the butler was over. She believed Black Jack could cure the old man, and revealed she was pregnant. The butler, however, learned of this, and threatened her, saying if she left him, he would expose her lie about the baby's father. The wife denied it, claiming the child was the old man's, but the butler insisted on blackmailing her, threatening to reveal the secret to the old man.